Hello, and welcome to Writing for Middle Grade. I'm so excited to be presenting to you today as part of this conference. The Writers Workout Group has been such a huge support of my writing career and such a big part of my writing journey, and I've learned so much from the people in this community and have so much fun participating in so many of the Writers Workout events. So I'm so excited to be here as a part of this first ever conference. Thanks again so much for joining today. I'm so excited to talk to you about middle grade. My name is Katie Evans. I'm a middle grade author, as you probably have guessed. My middle grade series, Aunt Claire's Pet Carrot, debuted in October 2023 with the first book, which is Aunt Claire's Secret. Oh, it's blurring on you, but there it is. Aunt Claire's Secret is the first in a 3-book series. The second book, Hacking Heroes, which you can see in the middle there, just came out February 6th, 2024. And the third book in the series, which is called Mission Save the Puppies, is out in June. This is a series of books for animal lovers and budding scientists. It's a good fit for fans of Minerva Keene's Detective Club and Miss Smith's Spy School for Girls and The Miscalculation of Lightning Girl. It's also been compared by reviewers to Spy Kids, which has been hugely flattering and I very much appreciate. But it's got female scientists and female hackers and female athletes and stories about friendship, but it's mostly about learning that everyone's skills have value, even if their skills are different. So I, like most of you, probably all of you, have always been a reader and a writer. Some of my earliest memories are about books, reading and writing, and early elementary school reading contests and writing contests, and of course the famous hiding under the closet or hiding under the blankets with the flashlight in a book. I'm sure there's all kinds of stories like that in this group. Some of my earliest memories, though, are about books, and I do remember when I was a kid, I used to tell people all the time that I wanted to be the youngest published author ever, even though at the time there were already authors that were younger than me, so I didn't really know that detail yet, but that was always what I wanted. I always thought I would write, but then I got into my full-time career and things, of course, took a different turn, as they often do. I started my full-time career as a newspaper and magazine reporter, so I was writing but not fiction, and I have since transitioned into some other communications and marketing work, specifically in environmental sciences, which is a story for another time, but writing never really left me. About 10 years ago, I had just finished my master's degree and decided that it was time for me to start a novel. I'll tell you all about that novel soon, but I can tell you that what I learned from that experience, from countless hours of work, years of work, is that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I thought as a reader and a career writer that writing a novel would come very easily to me. I was wrong. Some of you may or may not have figured out in your writing journey yet. But that leads me to a very important message today, which is yay you. Thank you for being here and taking the time to learn about the craft, to learn more about what you're doing, to make sure that you're doing it right. This is definitely where I went wrong. I wasted years not understanding the craft, and it wasn't until I really started attending conferences, reading books, going to classes, really trying to understand what I was doing, that I started to get it right. So you are in the right place today, and I'm very excited that you're here. A question that I get asked a lot is how I ended up in middle grade as a middle grade author. And that is really a story of trial and error. I can see my animations messed up on this slide, but the first book that I ever wrote was women's fiction. I mentioned a minute ago how that was not a great experience and took me many years. I mean, that book was garbage, and I'll just be so frank to say that, but it's the worst book ever. I don't know what I was thinking. And that book will never see the light of day. It will never come out of my computer. But it was writing that book that helped me to realize that I wasn't really in that genre. I wasn't looking to write that. And I didn't really have ideas that fit that. So I started writing picture books. And I really thought that was where I would end up. I have had some success with picture books. That's what my animations are supposed to show you. There we go. I got an agent by querying a picture book that was successful in its own right. And I do have a picture book that's coming out in 2026 with Holiday House. So picture books have been successful for me as well. but they're different. They're a lot different than writing middle grade. I did try some chapter books, and that was really because I had these concepts in my head that were just too big and too old for picture books. And I didn't think I could quite develop them into middle grades, or maybe I was even afraid of developing them into middle grades, but I did try them. I wrote a few chapter books and felt like it just wasn't the right fit for me. I really found my sweet spot in middle grade, specifically middle grade books with female main characters in STEM. This is very much a Write What You Know situation. I mentioned earlier that I work in environmental science, and I have found a lot of ways to apply scenarios to my characters that make sense to me because I've seen them. The topics I want to write about and the story ideas just fit really well into middle grade books. So I tried it, and of course, some of them went badly. But this was much closer to the right fit for me. So this is where I focused my energy, and this is where I really tried to hone in on the craft, was how can I get middle grade right? At the end of the day, it is what is the right fit for the story I want to write. You know, if I know that the story that I'm writing is about, 12-year-olds, I need to figure out how to make that work. And so it's a matter of finding the match to your story idea, fitting your audience and telling your audience that story. Similarly, I have a young adult book that I wrote and I love, and the reason it's a young adult book is because the plot and the story just went with YA. It is a scenario that could only happen to a young adult character, so I went with it and it worked. My previous agent said it's the best book I've written, so I think that's really about matching your story to who would read it. So as you start to decide what you want to write and who you want to write for, I would really take some time, really invest some time into thinking about that. Who is my audience? Who do I want to read? If I know what my story is, who does that story apply to? And that's how you make it work. For me, that was how I found middle grade, and it's really been the right fit for the types of books that I want to write. It's really been a good audience match for the material that I plan to use, the plot I plan to use, and now that I started to have a little bit of a following, it's going to continue to work that way for me. One thing I want to caution you though is don't let writing for middle grade trick you into thinking that you're getting off easy. I think that sometimes when people think about writing, they think, oh, it's going to be easier because it's shorter, or oh, this will be simpler because these kids are younger. I would argue almost the opposite of that. I think writing middle grade is extremely, extremely challenging because of all the things that make people think it's easy. So when you write middle grade, you still have to have all of the elements of a longer book. You just get less words to do it in. And so it becomes really challenging. You still need to have an exciting and engaging plot. Middle grade readers have short attention spans. You need every scene to be engaging and every scene to be exciting. One of the things I worried about a lot when I started writing middle grade was stakes. I'll tell you right now, there are instances of kidnapping, of death, of terrorism even in Aunt Claire's Pet Care. And I thought that it was too heavy for middle grade. So I conferred with an agent at a conference when I had the opportunity to do that. And he told me to give middle graders more credit than that. He reminded me that they see and experience much of what adults do. Maybe they don't understand it the same way because they don't have the same life experience, but they see all of what's going on, and they're growing and learning about the world. So let's give them the opportunity to do that. Of course, you don't want to be too graphic, but as long as you're not too graphic, I think that middle grade books can have end of the world stakes. That can really work in middle grade, but again, you're having to do it on a very tight word count. I also personally find that character development in middle grade is huge. You probably remember being a late elementary school student or a middle school student, or maybe you remember your kids during that time. And I mean, it's awkward, right? It is a very awkward time. So this is where they go from being kids to young adults, and you need to reflect that in your book. You need to show them growing. You need to show them changing and becoming the person that they will be and the adult that they're going to be. It's my personal opinion that character development is actually the most important element to a middle grade book. So I would really invest your time and energy in making sure that your book has a very, very strong character development. And then again, keep in mind, you have far less words to do it. And I just want to take this minute to remind you that your readers are smart and you need to act like it. That's part of being a middle grade author, and I think it's a really important thing to keep in mind that just because they're younger doesn't mean that they don't understand and they don't know what's going on. I recently read a middle grade fantasy that had done some really great world building. And then at the height of the climax, one of the major rules of the world was violated, and it ruined the book for me. The book, which I will, of course, not name, has been something of a flop, and I can't help but think that that might be why. Your readers trust you. They trust you to follow your own rules. If you tell me that a character is nice and then she breaks character and does something mean, your readers won't trust you. If you tell us that in your world X is impossible and then you just go do it, your readers won't trust you. So it's fine to develop whatever your rules are, but you have to make sure you follow them because your readers will know if you don't. And if you break that reader trust, it's very, very hard to get someone to keep reading your book. That being said, too, though, your readers don't know everything. You do need to know what your readers know. This is an important element for middle grade because they are still learning a whole lot about the world, even down to the sciences and how math works and reading, and there's a whole lot that they're still learning, specifically in that 9 to 12 age group. I write science fiction, so I need to know exactly what my readers know about science fiction or about science in general. I spend a lot of time looking at science curriculum. I can pull it up. That's publicly available information that I can find online. I need to know what my readers know about clouds or genetics or whatever else. Aunt Claire's Pet Care specifically is about genetics. So I had to dig in on science curriculum and find out what kids know and what they don't know about genetics. What are they learning? When are they learning it? And, specifically when they're in 6th grade, what will they understand? Because not just do I know I need my reader to be able to understand the book, but I needed my main character to know what you would know in 6th grade. I had to do a lot of research on that. Once I do know that, though, once I know where they are in the process, I really start with the basics and try to educate myself on it from an early development stage moving on. For example, I wrote a book that focuses on robotics. So I got this robotics book. Gosh, sorry, it keeps blurring on you, but this is just a kid's robotics handbook. And I did the activities in it. I tried the stuff. I tried to make robots to see what concepts would make sense and what concepts wouldn't. I am now currently working on a book that has time travel in it. Time travel specifically through a wormhole. So I've spent a lot of time with physics books, kids' physics books, trying to figure out what might make sense to my reader. While I understand that I'm writing something extremely fictional, I need to know, do kids know what a supernova is? Do they understand gravitational force? These are the types of things that are going to be key elements in making sure that my book makes sense to readers. I would really, really encourage you to spend some time doing this. Again, curriculum is publicly available for you. You can find it online and know exactly what is being taught to the kids who are going to read your book so that you're not writing way above them or way below them and losing them that way. When I decided to write middle grade, one thing that I really struggled with was the writing itself. How complex should my sentences be? How complex of words can I use? And I think really there's only one way to answer this. I don't want to insult my readers. Again, just like I talked about with research, I want my readers to feel like I know that they are smart. If I quote unquote dumb down a book too far, my middle grade readers will be bored and they will not want to read it. Something very offensive to middle schoolers is when you treat them like babies, right? They don't want that. So I need it to be elevated enough that they're challenged by it. But if I get too complicated, of course, I will lose them, especially since, some of what I'm writing is science fiction and it can get very, very complicated. The only way to deal with this, in my opinion, is to read and read and read and read and read and read like your life depends on it. I'm not saying everyone has to do it exactly this way, but I do this thing that I call middle grade immersion. My friends and family recognize that term now, and I say I'm going into middle grade immersion. When I'm preparing to write a middle grade book, I get myself so deep into reading middle grade that I barely come up for air. I will usually read about 15 middle grades, one right after another, one after another after another, before I start writing, before I write a single word of my book, because I want to have my mind in the right place of using the right sentence structure, using the right complexity of language, and getting myself to a place where I'm immersed in middle grade language. Then I start writing the book, and I have to do the same thing. If I read something for pleasure while I'm writing, it's got to be middle grade. I have definitely found that if I pick up something else while writing middle grade, it changes my sentence structures. Maybe this is just me, maybe this is just a problem that I have, but it's certainly something I'm aware of and I try to be very cautious of. If I pick up an adult fantasy while I'm writing a middle grade sci-fi, suddenly my language starts to sound like adult fantasy when I want to stay in that middle grade space. How you do this is up to you. How you need to get your brain in the right place is obviously completely dependent on how you work, but I think there's no way around reading. You read and you read and you read so that you really understand what middle grade language looks like. I also really encourage you to read recently published middle grade. Whenever I go to pick up a new middle grade book, I look in the front to see what year it was published, and I try not to read anything that's more than 5 years old. Another reason for that is some of the language, some of the lingo, right? That the slang that we're using. I want to see what it says. I also know that if I write a book today, it's probably 3 to 4 years from being released. So anything that I read that's 5 years older than that is going to be absolutely dated by the time my book comes out. So reading that recent middle grade is a really great way to make sure that your language and the writing itself is aligned with what you want. I think potentially the most challenging thing about being a middle grade author is marketing to middle grade readers. Unlike young children, they have a big say in what they read, right? A lot of young kids have books picked out for them by adults. Conversely, once you start getting into YA, you're really in a place where kids have more control over what they're reading. They're able to purchase something on their own. Middle grade readers don't have as much control as some older readers, but they also want it. They want to have that control. This is really challenging because a lot of the marketing that's being done to other readers doesn't reach middle graders. For example, social media. Parents are on social media. So if you're writing picture books, the parents might see that. You may target your ads to parents. Conversely, if you're writing new adult or young adult, those are definitely people on social media and you can target your ads to them. With middle grade, it's really different, right? Their parents aren't necessarily looking for their books and they're not necessarily on the platforms where you're going to be able to release ads. It's very challenging to reach this audience. And I definitely haven't figured it all out. I'm just going to share with you what I've tried and a little bit about how I think it's worked. So the first thing I've tried is working with influencers. As you know, there's lots and lots of book talk and bookstagram influencers out there who have big followings and read middle grade and can talk about it. I've had a pretty hard time breaking into that group. They're busy people and everybody's sending them their books. I've also tried social media on my own. So social media obviously involves a whole lot of different platforms. I've been really big on Instagram and TikTok. That's where I've really focused my energies, sharing my books with both natural content, organic content, and paid ads. I've tried my own newsletters. I have found really no success with that. And I think that's a little bit funny because most of the writers I talk to really do well with their newsletter. Their newsletter tends to be something that's really a successful marketing campaign for them. It has not been for me. I don't know why that is. I'm not sure if I just haven't gotten the following that I wanted or that I would need for that to be successful, but it's just not been big for me. I've worked with some libraries and bookstores, some nonprofits, some reading groups. I've volunteered to go anywhere and be anywhere, and that has helped. I did do some advertising with This Week Junior. This Week Junior is a great publication, and I was really hoping they would review my book, which I wasn't able to make happen, but I was able to do some advertising with them. I did Google Ads. Lucky for me, Aunt Claire's Pet Care, the first book, Aunt Claire's Secret, came out right before Christmas. So I really pushed hard on Google Ads for that. I attempted to get my book into some book subscription boxes, but wasn't able to make that happen. However, I was able to advertise with book subscription boxes. So I was able to pay to have a postcard about my books inserted into the box, which, really targets my demographic. And then I also did some giveaways. I will tell you that my real marketing strategy for my series, because it is a 3-book series, was that I could use book 1 as a loss leader, and that would get people really interested in reading books 2 and 3. We will see if that's successful. So of what I tried, what I think really worked was social media, working with bookstores, Google Ads, and giveaways. As I mentioned, I'm trying to make book 1 a loss leader. We will see if that's successful. As far as social media goes, I've really, really been driving my friends and family crazy about helping me with that. I post something, I tag everyone I know in it, I ask them to share it. Of course, they know that's coming before I don't drive them that crazy. But that's something I've been really pushing is I post something, I ask my friends to share it. It costs them nothing. It's easy to do. It's worked. I am very fortunate that a local independent bookstore in my area has been eager to work with local authors. So I have gone anywhere and everywhere that she has invited me. I show up at pop-ups, I have been at events and occasions, and I am so happy to go to anything that she asks me to be at because it's in-person interaction, but it also ends up being great social media content. So when I go to her bookstore event and I'm talking to readers and signing books and taking pictures, all of those things then get to be repurposed for social media content, which has been really wonderful. In addition to that, this local bookstore happens to have a really great social media following, so her social media also, often displays my books, which has been really great. Working with that bookstore has also really connected me to some other people in the community. So there are a lot of nonprofits that have book-related events, and specifically around the holidays when Aunt Claire's Secret came out, I was able to participate in a lot of events for nonprofits. I was able to go to a Kids Need to Read event where I made friendship bracelets with kids, and my book was prominently displayed. I was also able to go to an event for single moms where I signed and gave books out that they could give to their children as Christmas gifts. These were all great ways for me to highlight my book and get it out in the community and spread it through word of mouth. The Google Ads, I feel really good about Google Ads. It's been a little bit expensive, but because they have such good analytics, I can see how many people are clicking on my ad. And it is a pretty predominant number, and it has resulted in sales. So for me, the Google Ad effort was a good one, and I would do it again. Giveaways, again, this is part of that book 1 as a loss leader idea. I think those have been successful, but time will tell. Again, I gave books away to nonprofits. I gave books away at events and occasions, really with the intent that if I could get book 1 in the hands of my readers early and often, that they would be hooked and they would be very interested in reading Hacking Heroes and Mission Save the Puppies. I can tell you that in the giveaways, there was a lot of enthusiasm. Whether that will result in book sales for books 2 and 3, I don't know yet. Hopefully, time will tell. Before we leave this topic and before I close up this presentation, I do want to take a minute to just really encourage you to spend some time with craft books. I do think that craft books can go a long way in helping your development, and they're quick, easy references for you to use as you're writing. You can have them on your desk. You can check back in on things they say whenever you need to, and they can be really useful. Lots of people have lots of different favorites, but I thought I would share a few of mine. I love Story Genius for character development. I think it's applicable to any genre, but you can read about character development through Story Genius, and it can be extremely helpful. She has a lot of activities in that book that you can use to really make sure you understand your characters and you can help them grow throughout the course of your book. My favorite plotting tool is Save the Cat. I started with Save the Cat, which is a screenwriting book. Now there's a Save the Cat for novels, which is out. I find that to be the easiest and best way to plot. Other people like other things, which is fine, but certainly Save the Cat is my favorite. And then for writing for kids, I really enjoy The Magic Words. It's just a great book and great resource to learn more about writing for children and the publishing industry itself. I highly recommend it and encourage you to read that as well. One of the best ways, of course, to become a better writer, in my opinion, is to connect with other writers. I think it's great when we can talk, when we can bounce ideas off of each other and learn from each other's experiences. So I put all my information up here, hoping that we could connect. This is the picture of me that you will see on most of these platforms if you go looking for me. So that way you can recognize it. But my website is authorkatieevans.com. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. I'd love to talk to you about what you're working on. And I really look forward to seeing all of the work that comes out of the writers that are part of this fantastic group. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to what I had to share. If you have any questions or I can help you with anything, I really look forward to being able to engage with you further.